the lights pulsed, a rainbow splashing across the roaring crowd. Elvis, a blur of sequins and charisma, commanded the stage. His voice, a powerful river, surged through the auditorium, making hearts race and feet tap. Girls screamed, their voices blending into a joyful wave of sound. Grown men clapped along, their faces lit with excitement. It was more than just a concert, it was an experience, a moment of pure, unadulterated joy. Elvis, with his signature swivel and smile, was in his element. He tossed scarves into the crowd, each one snatched with a squeal of delight. He sang with a passion that vibrated through the floorboards, his energy infectious. Every move was calculated, every glance a connection with someone in the audience. He was the king, and this was his kingdom. He launched into Hound Dog, the iconic opening chords sending another surge of energy through the crowd. The band was tight, the saxophone wailing, the drums pounding a steady beat that resonated in everyone's chest. Elvis danced, a whirlwind of cool, his black hair gleaming under the spotlight. He pointed, he winked, he commanded attention without saying a word. He knew how to work a crowd, how to make each person feel like they were the only one in the room. He'd learned from the best, from years of smaller gigs, of honing his craft. Now here he was, a legend in the making, bathed in the adoration of thousands. He finished the song with a flourish, striking a pose as the final note faded away. The applause was deafening, a tidal wave of appreciation. He grinned, wiping sweat from his brow with a silk scarf. He loved this, the energy, the connection, the pure joy of making music. This was what he was born to do. But even amidst the roar, something caught his eye, a small island of quiet in the sea of excitement. It was a small figure in the front row, almost swallowed by the sea of bobbing heads and waving arms. Unlike everyone else, she wasn't cheering, wasn't smiling, wasn't even moving much at all. She was just there. A tiny island of stillness in a hurricane of sound and light. She sat with her head bowed, her small shoulders shaking slightly. In her arms she clutched a teddy bear, its fur worn and matted from years of love and comfort. Her face was buried in its soft belly, hidden from the bright lights and the adoring gaze of the crowd. Elvis squinted, trying to get a better look. He could see the glint of tears on her cheeks, catching the light like tiny diamonds. She wasn't making a scene, wasn't demanding attention. There was no sign held aloft, no desperate plea for help. Just quiet, heartbreaking sobs that seemed to get lost in the music, yet somehow managed to cut through it all and reach him. The teddy bear was almost as big as she was, a comforting presence in a world that suddenly felt overwhelming. It was brown, with one button eye missing and a stitched-up tear on its arm. It looked like it had been through a lot, just like the little girl who held it so tightly. He wondered what could have brought such sadness to such a young face. Was she lost? Scared? Missing her parents? He knew that feeling, that ache of loneliness, even in a crowded room. It was a feeling he never quite shook off, no matter how many people screamed his name. She didn't seem to notice him looking, lost in her own world of sorrow. The music continued to pound, the crowd continued to cheer, but for Elvis, everything seemed to fade away except for that small, sobbing figure in the front row. He had to do something. He couldn't just stand there and pretend he didn't see her pain. It was a call he couldn't ignore, a silent plea that resonated deep within his heart. He knew, in that moment, that the show had to stop. This little girl needed him more. The music screeched to a halt. The sudden silence was deafening, a stark contrast to the thunderous applause that had filled the auditorium just moments before. The band members looked at each other, confused. The crowd murmured, wondering what was happening. Elvis held up a hand, silencing them all with a simple gesture. He didn't say a word. He just pointed, his finger aimed directly at the little girl in the front row. A spotlight followed his gesture, illuminating her small, tear-streaked face. The crowd gasped, understanding dawning on their faces. Then, he motioned with his hand, a gentle, beckoning wave. He wanted her brought closer. 2 security guards, burly men with kind eyes, moved quickly through the crowd, clearing a path to the little girl. She looked up, startled, her eyes wide with confusion. They spoke to her softly, reassuring her that everything was all right. One of them gently scooped her up in his arms, teddy bear and all. The crowd watched in hushed silence as they carried her towards the stage. It was like a scene from a movie, the music frozen in time, the attention focused solely on this small, fragile figure. As she was lifted onto the stage, Elvis stepped forward, his expression soft and concerned. He knelt down, bringing himself to her level, his eyes filled with warmth and compassion. He still didn't speak, allowing her to adjust to the sudden change of scenery, the bright lights, the sea of faces staring back at her. He simply waited, his gaze patient and understanding. He knew that sometimes, the best thing you can do for someone who's hurting is just to be there, to offer a silent presence, a safe space to land. The whole auditorium held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. The air crackled with anticipation, a mixture of curiosity, concern, and a shared sense of humanity. Everyone in the room was united in that moment, connected by the simple act of witnessing a small act of kindness unfold. The little girl, still clutching her teddy bear, looked up at Elvis with wide, uncertain eyes. He smiled gently, a reassuring gesture that seemed to calm her slightly. He reached out, not to her, but to the teddy bear. With infinite care, he took the worn, brown bear from her arms. It was light, almost weightless, but to her, it was clearly a precious treasure. He held it for a moment, examining its stitched-up arm and missing button eye. Then, he did something unexpected. He leaned down and gently kissed the teddy bear on its furry head. It was a small, simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. It was a sign of respect, a validation of the bear's importance, a recognition of the comfort it provided. The crowd gasped softly, touched by the sincerity of the moment. Then, he turned and walked towards his grand piano, its polished surface gleaming under the stage lights. He carefully placed the teddy bear on top of the piano, right beside a vase of red roses. It looked a little out of place, a worn, cuddly toy amidst the elegance and grandeur, but somehow, it belonged. He turned back to the little girl, his eyes still filled with warmth. He reached out his hand, offering her his assistance. She hesitated for a moment, then took his hand, her small fingers wrapping around his. He helped her to her feet, guiding her towards the piano. He didn't say a word, letting his actions speak for themselves. He gently lifted her up onto the piano bench, placing her right beside her beloved teddy bear. She sat there, perched on the edge of the bench, her eyes fixed on the bear. The crowd remained silent, respectful, waiting to see what Elvis would do next. He had stopped the show, brought this little girl on stage, and now, he was about to do something truly special, something that would touch the hearts of everyone in the room. He was about to turn a moment of sadness into a memory they would never forget. The teddy bear sat perched on the piano, a silent observer. It wasn't just placed there, it was positioned with care, almost as if Elvis had given thought to the best angle for it to see and hear. It looked out at the massive audience, its one good eye seemingly taking in the scene. The piano itself seemed to hum with anticipation. It was a beautiful instrument, its ebony and ivory keys gleaming under the lights. It had witnessed countless performances, countless songs, but tonight felt different. Tonight, it was more than just a musical instrument, it was a silent participant in a moment of human connection. The red roses in the vase added a touch of elegance, a stark contrast to the teddy bear's worn appearance. But together, they created a tableau of beauty and comfort, a visual representation of Elvis's intentions. He wanted to create a safe and welcoming space for this little girl, a place where she could feel loved and protected. The silence in the auditorium was profound. You could have heard a pin drop. Everyone was holding their breath, waiting for Elvis to break the silence with his music. But this silence was different from the silence that had followed the abrupt stop of Hound Dog. This silence was filled with a sense of reverence, a shared understanding that something truly special was about to happen. Even the band members seemed to sense the importance of the moment. They stood quietly, their instruments resting at their sides, their eyes fixed on Elvis and the little girl. They knew that this wasn't just another concert, it was a moment of humanity, a testament to the power of music to heal and connect. Elvis took a deep breath, his fingers hovering over the piano keys. He glanced at the little girl, a gentle smile gracing his lips. Then he began to play. The first notes were soft and delicate, like a gentle breeze rustling through the leaves. It was a melody that was both familiar and new, a song that spoke of love, loss, and hope. The concert hall transformed from a venue of excited screams into a place where gentle music could heal a broken heart. The melody unfolded, a gentle cascade of notes that washed over the audience. It wasn't a song anyone recognized, not at first. It was soft, tender, and achingly beautiful, like a lullaby whispered in the dark. But as Elvis began to sing, the words revealed the song's true purpose. He sang about finding light in the darkness, about the importance of holding on to hope, even when things seem bleak. He sang about the power of love to heal all wounds, and the comfort that can be found in simple things. He sang directly to the little girl, his voice filled with compassion and understanding. He didn't look at the crowd, didn't acknowledge their presence. His focus was solely on her, his voice a lifeline reaching out to her in her moment of sadness. The lyrics were simple, easy to understand, yet they carried a profound message of hope and resilience. "Little darling, don't you cry, wipe the tears from your pretty eyes. The sun will shine again, it's true, and love will always see you through." He sang those words with such sincerity, such conviction, that it was impossible not to be moved. The little girl listened intently, her eyes fixed on Elvis, her face slowly beginning to soften. The sobs had subsided, replaced by a quiet attentiveness. The crowd was mesmerized. They had come to see Elvis, the king of rock and roll, the charismatic performer who could set a stage on fire with his energy. But they were witnessing something even more extraordinary. Elvis, the human being, the compassionate soul, using his music to heal a broken heart. He sang with a vulnerability that he rarely showed in his public performances, stripping away the layers of fame and fortune to reveal the raw emotion that lay beneath. He sang from the heart, pouring all of his love and empathy into every note, every word. The song became a bridge connecting him to the little girl, and to everyone else in the room who had ever felt lost, alone, or afraid. It was a reminder that even in the midst of a crowded room, we are all connected by our shared humanity. And that sometimes, all it takes is a song to make us feel a little less alone. The silence that followed the last note was even more profound than before. It wasn't just a silence of respect, it was a silence filled with emotion, with shared understanding, with a sense of collective healing. Everyone in the room had been touched by the moment, by Elvis's kindness, by the power of his music. The little girl looked up at Elvis, her eyes wide with wonder. A small smile flickered across her lips, a sign that the sadness had begun to recede. She reached out and gently touched the teddy bear, as if reassuring herself that it was still there. Elvis smiled back at her, a genuine, heartfelt smile that radiated warmth and compassion. He didn't say anything, didn't need to. The music had spoken for him, conveying a message of love and hope that transcended words. He knew that he couldn't erase her sadness completely, couldn't magically fix whatever was troubling her. But he hoped that his song had offered her a moment of comfort, a glimmer of light in the darkness. He hoped that she would remember this night, not for the tears she had shed, but for the kindness she had received. The crowd erupted in applause, a thunderous ovation that seemed to shake the very foundations of the auditorium. They were applauding not just Elvis's performance, but his humanity, his compassion, his willingness to connect with someone in need. He bowed his head slightly, acknowledging their appreciation, but his eyes remained fixed on the little girl. He wanted her to know that this was for her, that she was the reason he had stopped the show, the reason he had sung that song. As the applause began to fade, he reached out and gently ruffled her hair. She giggled softly, a sound that warmed his heart. He knew that he had made a difference, that he had brought a little bit of joy into her life. And in that moment, he felt a sense of fulfillment that surpassed any applause, any award, any amount of fame or fortune. He had used his gift to make the world a little bit brighter, one song, one little girl at a time. This was the true power of music. This was the true meaning of being the king. But why was she crying? What had brought such sadness to this little girl's face? Was she missing her mother or father? Had she lost a favorite toy? Was she simply overwhelmed by the noise and the crowds? The questions swirled in Elvis's mind, unanswered, but they fueled his desire to help. Perhaps she had been separated from her parents in the large crowd, a terrifying experience for any child. Maybe the loud music and flashing lights had been too much for her to handle, triggering a wave of anxiety and fear. Or maybe, just maybe, she was carrying a heavier burden, a sadness that ran deeper than anyone could see. It was impossible to know for sure, and Elvis knew that he couldn't pry. He could only offer her his music, his kindness, and his unwavering support. He could only hope that his actions would bring her a little bit of comfort, a little bit of peace. He remembered his own childhood, the struggles he had faced, the times he had felt lost and alone. He remembered the comfort he had found in music, the way it had soothed his soul and lifted his spirits. He wanted to offer that same solace to this little girl, to show her that she wasn't alone, that someone cared. He thought about his own mother, Gladys, and how she had always been there for him, a source of unwavering love and support. He knew that this little girl needed that same kind of love, that same kind of reassurance. He looked at her again, perched on the piano bench beside her teddy bear, her face still etched with a hint of sadness. He knew that he couldn't solve all of her problems, couldn't magically make her pain disappear. But he could offer her a moment of respite, a glimmer of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always light to be found. And that was enough. That was all he could do. But sometimes, that was all it took. A simple act of kindness, a heartfelt song, a gentle touch, to make the world a little bit brighter, one little girl at a time. And that, he thought, was a pretty good reason to be the king. Elvis often spoke of his own humble beginnings, growing up in Tupelo, Mississippi, with very little money but a whole lot of love. He knew what it was like to feel different, to feel like an outsider, to yearn for something more. He had lost his twin brother, Jesse, at birth, a tragedy that had deeply affected his mother and left a void in his life that he carried with him always. He understood the pain of loss, the ache of longing, the feeling of being incomplete. His family had struggled financially, moving from place to place in search of work. He had seen his parents work tirelessly to provide for him, sacrificing their own needs to ensure that he had food on the table and a roof over his head. He knew the meaning of hard work, the value of perseverance, the importance of never giving up on your dreams. He had faced his share of criticism and rejection, especially in the early days of his career. People had told him that his music was too different, that he would never make it, that he should give up and get a real job. But he had refused to listen to the naysayers, clinging to his belief in himself and his music. He had learned to channel his pain and his struggles into his music, using it as a way to express his emotions, to connect with others, to inspire hope. He knew that music had the power to heal, to uplift, to transform. And that's why he had stopped the show for this little girl. He saw a reflection of himself in her sadness, a kindred spirit who needed a little bit of love and reassurance. He wanted to show her that even though life could be tough, even though there would be times when she felt lost and alone, she was never truly alone. There was always someone who cared, someone who understood, someone who was willing to offer a helping hand. He knew that his own past, his own struggles, had prepared him for this moment. They had made him more compassionate, more empathetic, more aware of the pain of others. They had given him the ability to connect with people on a deeper level, to touch their hearts with his music. And that, he realized, was the greatest gift of all. The concert resumed, but it was different now. The energy had shifted, transformed from a wild, exuberant celebration into something more intimate, more meaningful. Elvis still sang with passion, still moved with grace, but there was a new depth to his performance, a new sincerity in his voice. He dedicated the next song, "Love Me Tender," to the little girl, his eyes fixed on her as he sang the tender lyrics. The crowd sang along, their voices soft and reverent, their hearts filled with compassion. It was as if everyone in the room had become a part of this special moment, united by their shared humanity. He followed with, "Are you lonesome tonight?" A song that spoke of longing and heartbreak, but this time, it felt like a message of hope, a reminder that even in the midst of loneliness, there is always the possibility of finding love and connection. He even threw in a playful rendition of Teddy Bear, winking at the little girl as he sang the catchy tune. She giggled, clapping her hands along with the music, her sadness momentarily forgotten. Throughout the rest of the concert, Elvis continued to acknowledge the little girl, offering her smiles, winks, and small gestures of affection. He made her feel like she was the most important person in the room, the reason he was singing, the reason he was performing. The crowd responded with warmth and enthusiasm, cheering for her, applauding her, showering her with love and support. They understood that this wasn't just about Elvis, it was about something bigger, something more important. It was about kindness, compassion, and the power of music to heal and connect. The concert ended on a high note, with Elvis belting out a powerful rendition of "Can't Help Falling in Love," a song that perfectly captured the emotions of the evening. The crowd roared with approval, their hearts overflowing with love and gratitude. As the lights came up, Elvis walked over to the little girl and knelt down beside her. He took her hand in his and smiled. "Thank you for being here tonight," he said softly. "You made this a very special show." The little girl's face, once clouded with sadness, now shone with a gentle light. She clapped her hands and tapped her feet along with the music, her eyes sparkling with joy. She even started singing along to some of the songs, her voice small but clear, joining the chorus of voices that filled the auditorium. She reached out and hugged her teddy bear tightly, burying her face in its soft fur. It was as if she was thanking the bear for being there for her, for providing her with comfort and support during a difficult time. She looked around at the crowd, her eyes meeting the kind gazes of the people who had witnessed her sadness and her transformation. She smiled shyly, acknowledging their presence, their support, their love. She even waved to some of the people in the front row, who waved back with enthusiasm. It was as if she had become a part of their family, a member of their community, a symbol of hope and resilience. As the concert drew to a close, she stood up and applauded, her hands clapping with all her might. She cheered for Elvis, for the band, for everyone who had made this night so special. She knew that she would never forget this night, never forget the kindness that Elvis had shown her, never forget the power of music to heal and connect. She knew that she would carry this memory with her always, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always light to be found. As she was helped off the stage, she turned back to Elvis and waved one last time. He smiled and winked, a silent promise that he would never forget her either. She walked out of the auditorium with her head held high, her heart filled with joy, her spirit renewed. She was no longer just a little girl who had been crying in the front row. She was a survivor, a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of kindness and compassion. And she knew that she could face anything, as long as she had her teddy bear and the memory of Elvis's song to guide her. Backstage, after the lights had dimmed and the crowds had dispersed, a small figure waited patiently. It was the little girl, still clutching her teddy bear, her face beaming with happiness. She was waiting to meet Elvis. A security guard gently led her to his dressing room, a space filled with the scent of hairspray and the sounds of hushed conversations. Elvis was sitting on a velvet couch, surrounded by his entourage, but his eyes lit up when he saw her. He dismissed everyone with a wave of his hand and beckoned her closer. He knelt down, bringing himself to her level, his eyes filled with warmth and sincerity. "Hi there," he said softly. "I'm so glad you came backstage to see me." The little girl smiled shyly and held out her teddy bear. "This is Mr. Snuggles," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "He wanted to meet you too." Elvis took the teddy bear and examined it carefully, just as he had done on stage. "Well, Mr. Snuggles," he said, "it's a pleasure to meet you. You're a very lucky bear to have such a wonderful friend." He handed the teddy bear back to the little girl and pulled her in for a hug. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lily," she said. "Well, Lily," Elvis said, "it was so nice to meet you tonight. You made this a very special show." He then pulled out a pen and a photograph of himself, signing it with a flourish. "To Lily," he wrote, "with love and best wishes. Elvis Presley." He handed her the photograph and winked. "Now you'll always have a reminder of this night." He posed for a picture with her, his arm around her shoulder, his smile radiant. It was a moment that would be captured forever, a testament to the power of kindness and compassion. As Lily was led away, her face glowing with happiness, Elvis watched her go, his heart filled with joy. He knew that he had made a difference in her life, that he had given her a memory that she would cherish forever. And that, he thought, was the greatest reward of all. The story of Elvis and the little girl spread like wildfire, carried by word of mouth, newspaper articles, and grainy black and white photographs. It became a legend, a testament to his kindness and compassion, a reminder that even the king of rock and roll was, at heart, a human being. Years later, Lily would tell the story to her children and grandchildren, her voice filled with awe and gratitude. She would show them the signed photograph, carefully preserved in a scrapbook, a tangible reminder of that magical night. She would tell them about the teddy bear, Mr. Snuggles, who had been her constant companion throughout her childhood, a source of comfort and support during difficult times. She would explain how Elvis had treated the bear with such respect, recognizing its importance, validating its presence. She would tell them about the song that Elvis had sung just for her, a song that had touched her heart and healed her soul. She would sing the lyrics, her voice trembling with emotion, remembering the feeling of being seen, of being heard, of being loved. And she would tell them about Elvis himself, the king of rock and roll, who had stopped his show to comfort a little girl in need. She would describe his kindness, his compassion, his sincerity, his unwavering belief in the power of music to heal and connect. The story became a part of her family's history, a source of inspiration and hope, a reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness can have a profound impact on the lives of others. And the story lived on, passed down from generation to generation, a testament to the enduring power of love, compassion, and the magic of Elvis Presley. It was a story that reminded everyone that even in a world filled with darkness and despair, there is always light to be found, always hope to be cherished, always love to be shared. It was a story that proved that even the king could be a knight in shining armor, rescuing a damsel in distress, not with a sword and shield, but with a song and a smile. Mr. Snuggles, the little girl's teddy bear, wasn't just a toy. He was a symbol of comfort, a confidant, a silent friend who had seen her through countless tears and shared in her happiest moments. He was a reminder of innocence, of childhood, of the simple joys that life had to offer. His worn fur and missing button eye told a story of love and devotion, of countless hugs and bedtime snuggles. He was a tangible representation of the little girl's inner world, a reflection of her hopes, her fears, and her dreams. When Elvis kissed Mr. Snuggles, he wasn't just kissing a teddy bear, he was kissing the little girl's heart, acknowledging her pain, validating her emotions. He was recognizing the importance of comfort, the power of love, and the healing that can be found in simple things. The teddy bear became a symbol of the entire night, a reminder that even in the midst of a crowded concert, even in the glare of the spotlight, there is always room for compassion, always room for kindness, always room for love. The image of Elvis kissing the teddy bear became iconic, a symbol of his humanity, a testament to his unwavering belief in the power of love. It was a reminder that even the king of rock and roll was, at heart, a gentle soul, a compassionate human being who cared about the well-being of others. And so, the teddy bear lived on, not just as a cherished toy, but as a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always light to be found, always love to be shared, always a reason to smile. He became a legend in his own right, a testament to the enduring power of kindness and compassion, a reminder that even a simple teddy bear can make a world of difference in the life of a child. He was more than just a stuffed animal. He was a friend, a confidant, a symbol of hope, and a reminder that love can conquer all. Elvis Presley was more than just a singer. He was an icon, a legend, a force of nature. His music transcended genres, his charisma captivated audiences, and his impact on popular culture was undeniable. He was known for his energy, his passion, his rebelliousness, but he also possessed a deep well of compassion, a genuine desire to connect with people on a human level. He wasn't just the king of rock and roll, he was a man of the people, a champion of the underdog, a voice for the voiceless. He used his platform to spread love, to inspire hope, to uplift spirits. He sang about heartbreak and longing, but he also sang about joy and redemption. He reminded people that even in the darkest of times, there is always reason to believe, always reason to hope, always reason to love. He faced his share of criticism and controversy, but he remained true to himself, never compromising his values, never abandoning his principles. He stood up for what he believed in, even when it wasn't popular, even when it was difficult. He was a complex figure, a man of many contradictions, but at his core, he was a good person, a kind soul, a compassionate human being. He cared about people, he cared about their well-being, and he used his influence to make the world a little bit better. The story of Elvis and the little girl is just one example of his humanity, a reminder that even in the midst of fame and fortune, he never forgot where he came from, never forgot the importance of kindness, never forgot the power of love. He left behind a legacy of music, of course, but he also left behind a legacy of compassion, a legacy of empathy, a legacy of kindness. He showed the world that even the king could be a servant, a friend, a beacon of hope. And that, perhaps, is his greatest achievement of all. He showed that being a legend is about more than just selling records and filling stadiums. It's about making a difference in the lives of others. And that is a legacy worth remembering. So, the next time you hear an Elvis song, remember more than just the music. Remember the story of the little girl and her teddy bear. Remember the kindness, the compassion, the human connection. Remember that even the king of rock and roll was, at heart, just a man who wanted to make the world a little bit brighter. Think about what you can do to make the world a little brighter too. Maybe it's offering a helping hand to someone in need. Maybe it's lending a listening ear to a friend who is struggling. Maybe it's just smiling at a stranger on the street. Small acts of kindness can have a ripple effect, spreading love and compassion throughout the world. And who knows, maybe one day, you'll be the one to make a difference in the life of a little girl with a teddy bear, reminding her that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope to be found. Elvis's legacy lives on, not just in his music, but in the countless acts of kindness that he inspired. He showed the world that being a star is about more than just fame and fortune. It's about using your influence to make a positive impact on the lives of others. And that is a legacy that we can all aspire to, a legacy that we can all embrace. So let's remember Elvis, not just as the king of rock and roll, but as the king of kindness, the king of compassion, the king of love. And let's all strive to be a little bit more like him, spreading joy and hope wherever we go. Let's all try to make the world a little bit brighter, one act of kindness at a time. Because that, in the end, is what truly matters. That is what truly endures. That is the true legacy of Elvis Presley.